Welcome to the Lineman Lounge, hosted by Mike and Evo, calling their shots and being outlandish.
Breaking news from the Lineman Lounge. My fantasy football team just took a huge fucking hit. And that also makes it even more likely that the Raiders are going to beat the Ravens on Monday night. Le'Veon Bell is about to be your starter. Latavius Murray is going to go there as well. Jesus, fuck my ass.
Get ready for the thickest podcast in the game. Coming to you from Hangar 6, where sleeves are optional. Strap in. The show starts right now.
¿Cómo están, bitches? This is the Lineman Lounge coming to you live from Hangar 6. I'm Mike. This is Evo, and we have a very big day. We don't have a ton of like football news, or not picking games anyways, but there's a ton of football, I guess, news. We got Major League Baseball, NBA. We got Senior Bowl stuff going on the TV. I had a busy morning coaching those kids, getting another dub. And just, man, we had an interview. We still got our interviewee in the room, our interviewer. We're the interviewees. I should, rephrase that.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Cool FM online from Sierra Vista here with us today. Did a little interview pre-show and sitting in to watch the beginning of the program. So we're going to have a little break after a little bit to allow him to get out of here, because I'm sure he's got more things to cover.
He does. He's a busy man.
We're going to get into all that. We've got, a little bit of update on local sports that we talked about last week.
We do. Some of it's good. Some of it was sad. I was a little depressed last night when I saw it.
But plenty of stuff going on, even if we didn't have NFL football going on this weekend, at least not your classic NFL football. We do have the Senior Bowl happening.
We do have the Senior Bowl. We also had the skills challenge stuff go down. That was really good. And I'm going to talk about if we should just get rid of the damn Pro Bowl and go to an all skills challenge.
I think there's an idea behind that.
Yeah, there absolutely should be, because the Pro Bowl sucks. It's terrible. Nobody wants. This. Not even real football. I don't want to watch that shit. Now you give me a bunch of alpha male athletes playing dodgeball, I'll crack a beer and watch that shit all day.
It's interesting to say the least. It's kind of like, hey, we're watching the Olympics go on right now.
Right.
It's like watching the football Olympics, except for a little bit more fun.
They are a little bit more fun.
And it's those names that you actually know. Some of the big names in the Olympics but generally you don't know who it is. You just kind of get behind the person but with your flag.
Yeah, absolutely.
These guys are players that you're watching every weekend. So it's fun to watch them go out there.
I'm very excited for the Senior Bowl stuff too, man, because there's some kids that I've been hearing about that make me very excited, some things that the Browns could definitely be looking for. And one name in particular that I'm going to highlight, and because this kid is an absolute electric factory, and the Browns need some damn help at wide receiver. But before we get into all that, we'll talk about some youth football this morning. So I got up thinking I was going to be coaching 2 football games. That did not go down. One of the teams had to cancel. Not 100% sure of the reason, but we'll go out there. We'll take one game and we'll get a big dub. We actually were playing the Southern Arizona Play 60 League from Tucson, so they came down to play us. Pretty good. Our boys were better today, though. We came out when we warmed up. We were flat as hell. We looked terrible. We looked absolutely terrible this morning. Game's a little later than we're used to. You throw off a 9-10-year-old's rhythm in the morning. Sometimes they start doing some weird stuff.
Yeah.
But we definitely came out, performed when we needed to. Ended up winning that game, 22-12. All of our big guys got in again. Graydon got to run the ball. All 3 of our linemen got to run. Big touchdown runs. That offense is really starting to come together. But, man, when we get to go and beat the crap out of Tucson teams, I love it. Anytime I can start putting in kids in positions that they don't normally play, it makes me happy. They're not going to – our linemen are not getting a lot of opportunities to run the ball. We had a couple opportunities during tackle season to do that. But, once we get up by quite a bit here, we're just running it through. I mean, we had Graydon playing corner today at one point.
Oh, wow.
And he is not a corner. I mean, he is a center.
He doesn't look like your prototypical corner.
No.
Good for the boy.
Yeah, I mean, he did not get torched, which was great. But, yeah, it was fun, man. Next weekend, we got more games. I don't know what times yet. There might be a reschedule of the one that got missed this week. but we'll definitely let everybody know on socials, when that's going to happen, when we're going to be live again. But yeah, it was good this morning. But we also had a story that you covered last week.
Yeah, so we talked about the Buena Colts basketball team.
Right.
They had been on a bit of a streak, 16 games, and they had their first loss last night, unfortunately, up in Tucson to the South Point Catholic School. They lost 83-66, but hell of a run by those boys. I mean, that's really tough to do, to go that long with that big of a streak. We can't talk enough about how awesome that is, and something that they should really be proud of. The thing with streaks is they're always going to end. So it's not about, getting upset or bummed out about the loss. It's about, celebrating the fact that you made such a big streak. And obviously this team is real good. We're going to be watching.
Oh, yeah, they're very good. They have, I think they got a chance to go out and win a state title here.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely an option, the way that they're playing right now. It's also, it's not something that people talk about a lot, but it's good to get one of these losses out of the way, because as you have one of these streaks, you're having so much pressure build up.
Right.
If you're able to get a loss out of the way, it takes away a lot of the pressure, but you still know what type of team that you are. So, look, boys, go out there, recover from this. You'll be better off for it. Don't be bummed out or down about taking the loss. It's going to happen to everybody. So just keep on trucking, and it'll be good to continue to follow how well you guys do this year, because you're having an amazing season. Yeah,
so slight hiccup, but we see this happen in the NFL all the time. Teams will go 14-0. That was that 2012 Colts team. They were 14-0, and then they decided to lose. They go out and drop a couple games. They don't eventually win the Super Bowl. Drew Brees gets that win, and everybody learns about his absolutely adorable baby. But we have teams that do this all the time. They will rest guys. We don't care about the perfect season. We get teams that have hiccups all the time. We saw the Bills throughout the NFL this year, had some hiccups, fantastic down the line. Yeah. Chiefs looked terrible at the start of the season. They make a run. Bengals had some hiccups. The Browns blew them the fuck out at one point, and now they're playing in the Super Bowl. So one little hiccup, it's not a bad thing. The pressure's off. Now get ready, go out and perform in the, regional tournament, and then let's see if we can get this thing rolling and keep moving on.
Absolutely. All right, Mike, what's next?
All right, man. So we got a comment on the Twitter from one of my buddies, Dean Henson, who's my guys that watching the Senior Bowl. We're going to get there, but before we get into the Senior Bowl stuff, when we start talking about some of these guys, I want to talk about Major League Baseball. So everybody knows I'm a huge baseball fan. It's one of the things that I grew up playing. I love coaching it, and I have a big, big problem with the way Major League Baseball runs their organization. They treat their minor leaguers like shit. They don't market their superstars. And now they're in this giant contract dispute, whereas Major League Baseball says, hey, we're going to work with you guys, MLBPA. And then after they say they're going to work with them, they request mediation to come in. So instead of just going back to the table with MLBPA, now they're requesting mediation. MLBPA told them to go fuck themselves. We're not doing it. If you want to talk, we're going to talk to each other. We're going to work this deal out. So it looks like it's not going to happen. And this is going to end up in a holdout that's going to go into spring training at this point, it looks like, and could possibly affect the start of the regular season. And baseball is one of those sports where this shit can't happen. Baseball is not popular enough right now to have this kind of a lockout and continue to attract fans. The fans that Major League Baseball does have are old as shit. They have not done a good job of pulling in young fans, marketing. Their social media game is terrible, and Rob Manfred is a moron who can't fucking speak. And now we're doing this. This is so upsetting to me as a baseball fan. What I would like to see happen, because they're probably not going to start on time, let's toss in some youth. Let's find a way to get some youth in there. Let's put on some college softball. Let's put on some college baseball. Let's get some baseball on TV. Some young guys who are going out there, balling out, having a good time, hitting dingers. And let's get baseball back in our lives. This shit's got to stop. It's ridiculous.
I was about to say, man, like baseball already until you get to like the playoffs or the All-Star game, at least you have a lot of those, very passive viewers.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be watching their team scores, but they might not be watching every game. Maybe they'll have it on the radio, but it's in the background, just playing some white noise. Look, I love baseball, but it's tough to watch all 100-something games.
162, baby.
So it's a game that's losing viewership. And then, I hate to say it, but the steroid era, that was more fun.
It was so good for baseball. Steroids
bad
are bad
for health.
Steroids are bad for you, kids. Do not take steroids. They are super, super bad for you. But when those people made that decision, they did that for their own bodies, and baseball was popular as shit.
Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, those big names that we all remember.
Guys who should be in the Hall of Fame but are not because the Baseball Writers of America are a bunch of old, ignorant assholes.
Well, I mean, you ain't wrong. And we did see the idea pop up. We had one of our buddies, Mike, pop in when we were talking about Barry Bonds in particular, saying, hey, he should be signed by a team to restart his timer. I've seen it all over social media now.
I'm all
saying that they need to re-sign Barry Bonds just for a game and then restart his all-star or his timer for the Pro Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, stick him out in left field for an inning, for a half an inning in defense. Hopefully nobody hits him the ball because he's probably not going to be able to move very well. But who cares? Stick it to the Baseball Writers of America. That's what they've been doing to all these potentially should be Hall of Famers like Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds. But no, I don't think it will happen. I think that would create just a shitstorm. But the Hall of Fame is starting to lose a little bit of its luster anyways because of some of the decisions that have been made based on that steroid era. So they're already starting to not hold as much credit as they probably once did.
Absolutely. All righty. Well, it's been about 12 minutes. I think this might be a good time for us to take that break.
Yeah. Everybody who was on Pool FM who, kind of joined in, thank you guys very much. Thank you for highlighting us. This was awesome. Hopefully you guys got a little bit of the taste of kind of how the show goes. It continues to roll in this fashion. I have no problem telling, people that they're dumb, especially Rob Manfred. So thank you guys very much.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you bet.
Welcome to the Lineman Lounge, hosted by Mike and Evo, calling their shots and being outlandish.
Breaking news from Lineman Lounge. My fantasy football team just took a huge fucking hit. And that also makes it even more likely that the Raiders are going to beat the Ravens on Monday night. Le'Veon Bell is about to be your starter. Latavius Murray is going to go there as well. Jesus, fuck my ass.
Get ready for the thickest podcast in the game. Coming to you from Hangar 6, where sleeves are optional. Strap in. The show starts right now.
What's up, everybody? We are back. So we got the Cool FM guy out of here. That was really cool that he kind of highlighted us. Hopefully that continues to grow this podcast and people will hop in and, kind of join in on the conversation. We already got a couple comments. Goose was messaging us early, like before we even went live, popped up on the YouTube and there was an upcoming thing. And he's like, oh, what the hell's going on?
I'm sure that he had something along the lines of like he had one window open with our current episode saying upcoming, and then he was like, well, I don't understand how this works. So he started clicking on another one. He started watching an old episode. He's like, I can see you guys.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's Goose. He's working a couple weeks behind usually.
Yeah.
So
a couple weeks is, I think, maybe even generous.
Maybe.
But yeah, so that was pretty dope. But let's kind of get back in. I'm always watching. Hell yeah. Thanks, Goose.
You are.
We also got Dave that hopped in there.
Yep. Dave saying, let's get some.
Actually, I'm pretty sure Dave is streaming right now. I would direct people in that direction, but I'd like people to stay here and watch us. I might hop in Dave's stream afterward, though.
If you can have your computer up with two windows open, by all means, you can go have some David Weideman. $20 is $20 on. You can see him on Twitch. Go for it. There, absolutely. But you want the volume turned up over here while you're passively watching him play a little bit of Warzone. But yeah, so we just had Cool FM dip on out. It was nice to have them in this morning, so pretty cool. I kept myself on a leash a little bit. I tried.
Yeah,
to.
I saw you were being a little bit more reserved. I started out that way, and then I just said, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna do me." I don't know any other way to be. I mean, there are times where that's not great. I don't know.
But old Fisty,
she stayed up there.
First appearance
she
on
stayed
Cool
up
FM.
there. That's fucking classic.
Absolutely.
All right. So we talked MLB. Let's get into the NBA real quick. Okay. There's not a ton going on here. Some interesting things though that are almost like they're football related. So Sashi Brown, you remember Sashi Brown?
Absolutely. He's coming back.
He is coming back to the NFL as the Ravens president after he is leaving the Wizards. So the interesting move going from NBA back over. Sashi Brown kind of was part of the engineer who helped the Browns tank for years.
Got to be careful about that word tanking.
I know.
We're going to get into some interesting connotations of what's going on with that.
Yeah, because the NFL is in an absolute clusterfuck with what is going on. We're going to get that real quick, though. But NBA All-Star Weekend coming up. Cavs did get an All-Star, but not the one I expected. They got Darius Garland. Jared Allen is a fucking All-Star, and if he doesn't become a reserve, I'm going to be very upset. He's one of the best big men in the league. So they got to figure that out. I mean, somebody always sits out of these things. Hopefully Jared Allen gets added into it. But, I mean, this season has been very weird. Things are going kind of as we expected a little bit when we started talking way, way back before season started. The Lakers aren't very fucking good. Russell Westbrook doesn't work with that team at all. You know who else isn't very fucking good? The Nets. They do not, those three stars in Harden, Kyrie, who is now back-ish, and Kevin Durant, they don't work together. There's just too much shit going on with those teams. They're not very good. Cavs are badass, though.
Yeah, and I'm not positive. I got to look because, again, I'm way more of a passive NBA fan. But I believe last night the Nets were playing and they were losing handily deep into the fourth. It was some stat that I heard that no team that had lost 8 in a row had ever gone on to win the whole thing. And this was going to be their 8th in a row of losing. Looking at it here.
7-game skid they're on. So okay. If they go down again tonight, or
maybe it was 7 games. I don't exactly remember.
Well, either way, they're in a bad spot.
Yeah.
They're not very
But
good.
they did have Harden sitting out.
I think KD was out last night.
I believe so. Which I wouldn't be surprised to see Harden.
Harden might be on the move. Trade deadline is coming up. It would not surprise me at all for them to blow this thing up and just say, okay, this does not work. Let's get some assets, because you can trade a Harden and get quite a bit of assets back. You can do the same thing with KD. I don't know about Kyrie right now just because of the COVID stuff, but you can jettison one or two of those guys, get quite a bit of stuff back. Maybe not for this year, but to build on in the future, a couple draft picks. So, but whatever they're doing ain't working. Same shit with the Lakers. I don't know if anybody wants to trade for Russell Westbrook. I don't think they'll get much of anything for him right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
All right. So that's MLB. We got NBA. Do we want to talk about the Olympics yet, or are we going to give that a little bit of time to marinate before we start diving in there?
You know, it might take a little bit of time to marinate. We can just say, hey, the Olympics have started. They are happening in China. In China, we've already had, I believe, a Danish reporter get yanked aside midstream by Chinese fucking agents.
Jesus, I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, it's happening in China. You got to be very careful about anything you say or do or any of that stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if there's trans athletes there, if they just go disappearing, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, they're
it's a contentious situation.
They're commies. I mean, the crazy shit happens.
Yeah, Xi Jinping doesn't like
no.
certain things. I guarantee you this podcast isn't being broadcast over there.
Absolutely not ever. Was it Xi Jinping can suck my ding dong? What was that? What the line was?
I believe so. Yeah, that might be a paraphrase, but it's pretty much.
It's pretty fucking close, I think.
Yeah. But the Olympics are going on. Go Team USA. It'll be interesting to watch that going forward. The only couple big highlights is that Shaun White has said that he's going to be retiring after this.
Yes.
Which is expected. I just didn't understand how old Shaun White was. I mean, I remember
He's
watching
like 40,
him.
right?
Yeah, I remember watching him as what I felt like was a kid
Right, yeah.
competing, and now I see him and he's got short hair and he's wrinkly.
Yeah,
I'm like, where, what happened, dude?
Listen, this
Still
is his
awesome.
4th Olympics or 5th Olympics. He's been doing this shit for 20 years, dominating. I mean, I don't expect him to go out and win gold. Maybe he fucking pulls one together for his last run.
I mean, he might.
But good on Shaun. Congratulations on a fantastic career. I mean, keep it rolling if you can. Get another dub, another gold. But man, that is a long ass run. There's some people that I'm going to kind of keep an eye on. Apparently, we got another badass speed skater that I was unaware of. Lacey Cooper told me about it, and this member Apollo Anton Ono going out there and crushing it. Apparently, we got another guy. I don't know what this kid's name is, but we got a guy. So,
Apollo Anton duo number 2.
I see what you did there.
Come on now.
That was not.
Yeah, not good at all.
No, that was pretty.
Lineman Lounge heard of the crappy dad jokes.
Yeah, that was pretty piss poor on my part. I miss that.
But yeah, so for me, I love watching. I mean, the Winter Olympics are my favorite over the 2 Olympics. We got hockey, you've got speed skating, you've got the luge, you got bobsled. Jamaica is bringing out that bobsled team, which is great. They might not be the USA, but I love rooting for, cool runnings. That's always fun to watch. But hockey definitely is big for me. I love watching hockey in the Olympics. It's going to be kind of interesting for the NHL this year. I'm not going to really get into it right now because we are not going to go deep into the Olympics before it happens. But there's some issues kind of with U.S. men's hockey and whatnot. NHL isn't really wanting players to be a part of the team right now due to COVID concerns and things like that. So that's kind of a bummer. But I will say this: U.S. women's hockey, they beat Russia. They beat the shit out of Russia.
Shit out of that.
And now they're 2-0 in the competition. So go women.
Yeah, I agree.
Our women's hockey team is
so good,
just as good as the men's hockey team.
Yeah, I have a bet in right now on the men's and women's U.S. hockey team. I got them both winning gold at plus 2,500. Both of those teams are really fucking good. So I like my chances here at plus 2,500. I expect the women to win. We mostly win. The teams we got to worry about, Russia just smacked them, in Canada. Yeah. And I think that's on both sides, men's and women's. Those are the teams that we're going to be worried about.
Typically, or any of those Eastern Bloc European, former USSR type teams. That's hockey is big over there. So that's, we have a pipeline coming to the NHL of some of those fantastic players that will be out there representing their home country. So those are the teams we got to worry about. But we have all the faith in the red, white, and blue of the USA.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no doubts. We're America. We're better than you, and we know it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Back-to-back World War champs.
Yeah.
Can't hide that history.
No, I'm not sure we'd want to.
No.
All right. So everything is now shared, blasted it out to all these pages. So I think it's time to start diving into some of the NFL stuff. And I would love to say that today is going to be a very upbeat, nice conversation, but there is some shit going on in the NFL that is not great. Let's start with some of the new coaching hirings that we have not got to. And then that's going to kind of segue us into some of the other things that are happening around the league. So Doug Peterson is now going to be the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I did not foresee this happening at all. I don't hate the move. I think Doug Peterson's not a bad coach. I thought Byron Leftwich was a better fit there, though. Now, Doug Peterson has shown that he can be pretty good coaching up a relatively young athletic quarterback. And I think that Shad Khan wanted to have a little bit more of a known commodity after he absolutely fumbled the hiring last year in bringing in Urban Meyer. So a little bit of stability, maybe a little bit of, somebody who's been there before makes sense for this team. But man, I really wanted to see Byron go back there, be the head coach of the team that he played for. It just didn't happen.
Yeah. So to be honest, if I'm a Jaguars fan, I'm very, very happy with this move. I have my issues with Doug Peterson, but I even had been saying, hey, if my Vikings go out and get him, I'll be comfortable with that.
Right.
For all intents and purposes, he is not necessarily a quarterback whisperer, but he's good with quarterbacks. He's good at developing quarterbacks. He's good at bringing in guys that are going to develop quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence is, he on paper, he had a bad year last year, but
not good.
All reports are that this guy is still the real deal. I mean, that was just a defunct team.
I still have a lot of faith in Trevor Lawrence.
Absolutely.
I think that having Urban Meyer there did him absolutely no fucking favors. It probably hurt him more than anything.
That didn't seem like much of a team last year. It seemed like a rolling dumpster fire. Getting a true NFL head coach in there will be helpful. Getting a guy that is focused on quarterback play will be helpful. And also getting a head coach in there that was able to out coach Bill Belichick with a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Big Dick Foles. That's something. That stands for something. All right. So Peterson coming in, that only is a positive thing for that team. My question the entire time, and I thought that the Jaguars actually have a very enviable job for head coaches to go to. The question marks are the ownership. Can the ownership get out of their way and allow that front office to operate like it needs to?
Well,
but more importantly is Trent Baalke. Trent Baalke, everywhere he goes, everything he touches turns to shit. Unfortunately, the Jaguars made it, their decision to sign him in the first place and retain him this year. They should not have done that.
No.
But it seems like they've hedged their bets kind of here. And this is why I think Peterson was willing to go to the Jaguars. Is you've got a good quarterback in place.
Yep.
That's the toughest position to fill out on an NFL roster. And he knows that he can probably mold this guy into being, at worst, an average to above average quarterback. But really, the sky's the limit for Trevor Lawrence. But then on top of that, my former GM, Rick Spielman, who is a football guy. He's a football guy. He understands the X's and O's of it. He might not be the best GM out there. I mean, obviously my team has had its ups and downs, but he's done some very good things in free agency and the draft. But, my Vikings, we needed a change, so we went a different direction. The Jaguars team, they just need a culture shift, and they need to get to some sort of stability. Rick Spielman right now, he is not signed yet, but he's been in talks with the Jaguars for a front office position that is above Trent Baalke.
Which needs to happen. Baalke cannot be in charge again.
Well, so that's the thing is I think that this is their safety net.
Yeah.
And this is Peterson's safety net while he's willing to go there. You have a professional like a Rick Spielman who's going to go in there and liaise between ownership and the GM and the head coach. And then when Baalke goes out there and steps on his fucking crank, which he's going to do,
he always does.
They can get rid of Baalke and they don't have to have this whole GM search. They have a succession plan in place for in mid-season if need be. Some of the reports coming out of there of Jacksonville is that Baalke wanted another GM type of guy in there so that way Baalke could be more involved with the players. Now, we'll get into my Vikings head coaching search stuff here, but let's just say I've done a lot of looking into Harbaugh recently.
Yeah, I saw.
All right.
I saw on the Facebook page.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was able to pick up was former 49ers and Vikings offensive lineman Alex Boone. He talked a lot about Harbaugh and the pros and cons of Harbaugh from his time there in San Francisco. And of course, the conversation went to what was the breakdown between Harbaugh and the front office, specifically Trent Baalke when he was there, because that seems to be the biggest point of contention is, hey, Harbaugh had this limited window there with the 49ers because him and the front office just butted heads. They were not working. And the way that Alex Boone made it sound was Trent Baalke would come down and be getting in their shit about stuff that he doesn't even know about. He'd be getting into the players' asses about things, and Harbaugh would go in there and be like, hey, you don't talk to my fucking players like that.
Yeah.
You're a fucking nerd. Go back to your office, build me a fucking roster, but stay out of my fucking business.
Yeah.
And of course, there's going to be some headbutting there. Baalke sounds like he doesn't want to just be the GM. He wants to be the coach.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to be way more involved with the players, which isn't a recipe for success unless it's a head coach that happens to move into the GM role or something like that. Or you have a Belichick who's playing both hats.
Yeah, there's very few guys who can be that GM.
It's been very unsuccessful in the NFL, with the exception of like a Belichick.
Yeah. So Bulky's got I thought they were going to let him go.
They really needed to, and honestly, if they bring Spielman in, the writing's on the wall. Like the first time Balky steps out of bounds, Spielman's going to go tell Shad Khan, fuck this guy, jettison him now. I can hold you over for the year or longer, but you need to get rid of this guy, and we need to figure out something else that's going on. And I think that's why Peterson goes there. I think Peterson does not sign with the team unless he has that conversation with Shad Khan saying, hey, you need to be invested in me. This guy's already on shaky ground, and I want some backup plan ready to go in case things fall to the wayside.
Yeah, I agree. But so that's kind of that Jags talk. I still would have liked Leftwich, but so we kind of prefaced it that this could be coming up, this could be happening. The Josh McDaniels hire to the Raiders. I don't think he was officially named the coach on last Saturday. I think there was just the conversation.
It was a heavy expectation that it was going to happen. I believe it actually happened like Saturday night. That McDaniels was signed as the head coach along with Dave Ziegler from the Patriots organization to be the GM. Which honestly, I there's a lot of differing views on McDaniels. He was not in a good situation. The more that I've learned about it, he was not in a good situation in Denver. I'm not going to say that he made all the right decisions, but you're talking about a very young coach at that time put into a bad situation. Apparently the Denver Broncos were just absolutely in salary hell, not just like cap, but the team just didn't have money.
No, they didn't. But his decisions at the quarterback position were also very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think that kind of leads to they just didn't have money to go out there and play. I didn't understand this with the salary cap, and I've educated myself a little bit more over the last week. But the salary cap, obviously the NFL sets the salary cap and the teams pay it.
Right.
But the team still has to have that money in-house. And with the team struggling so much, I'm hearing from former players like Chris Sims, who was talking about being on that roster. And he's like, they had my signing bonus and they couldn't pay me. That they had to wait for games and ticket sales to happen throughout the year in order to pay him his signing bonus, which was due earlier.
Yeah.
Crazy shit like that. And
so that's like some Raiders type shit. That's what happens with the Raiders.
Yeah. Which, for all intents and purposes, the Raiders are doing fine now. They're in Vegas. But McDaniels, I think, was dealt kind of a shit hand there with the Broncos. And for what he was able to do with the Broncos, it wasn't half bad. Obviously, being up in New England, he's been part of a fantastic team. A lot of that has to do with the quarterback that was there for years and years, and Tom Brady, and Belichick as well. What I don't like about McDaniels was what happened, with the Colts. That seemed pretty shady. But if they're able to get this figured out here in Vegas, I think it's a good hire for him. I think he's a solid coach. Still would have loved Bisaccia to be the guy there because I think he earned his spot.
I think he did too.
But the Raiders want to go with that flashy move, so they're going to bring in a big name like McDaniels. So
yeah, but so the McDaniels thing, I guess maybe he gets another shot. He's proven that he can win some games with some inferior talent in Denver. What he did to the Colts was absolutely terrible, though. But this is Patriots, 4.0, 5.0? What fucking iteration is this? Where the Patriots, they leave, the coach leaves.
I mean,
they bring in a front
Matt
office
Patricia,
guy.
Bill O'Brien, Brian Flores, technically. I mean, you've had so many Patriots guys leave and not be successful.
And then they also take a GM or a GM candidate from that organization, and it doesn't fucking work. Now, maybe this is where they get it right. The Raiders are obviously very talented. They just went to the fucking playoffs with an interim head coach.
Yeah.
So maybe McDaniels can make it work. But God, I'm just so tired of Patriots West, Patriots East, Patriots South, Patriots North. It has not fucking worked in the past.
You see some of these coaching trees where it absolutely works. The Andy Reid coaching tree and things like that. Obviously, the McVay coaching tree now has been successful in recent years. The Belichick coaching tree just hasn't really worked outside of New England.
No, it hasn't. And for Raiders fans, I'm anxious for them to see if this is finally the iteration that gets it right. I don't have a ton of hope right now for them, though.
I mean, say what you will about Flores, and we are going to get into Flores, but what he did in Miami was pretty damn good as far as pulling a team out of a train wreck situation.
Yeah.
And making them at least somewhat competitive.
Brian Flores is a good fucking coach.
He does seem like a very good coach. And McDaniels, I think, of the group, has the best opportunity to be successful leaving that tree. I mean, we're talking like 10 years ago that he was with the Broncos, and he's learned, you have to expect that he's learned a lot in between now and then.
Well, when you're an understudy of Bill Belichick, if you're not learning, you're a shitbag. I have no other way to put it.
Absolutely.
So he should be getting better. All right. So we have Josh McDaniels, talked Doug Peterson. Now we already talked about Nathaniel Hackett, right? We talked about Brian Daboll, Matt Eberflus, but the one coaching hiring that we have not talked about yet, I'm going to let you go ahead and take it. Kevin O'Connell is now the head coach of the Vikings. How do you feel?
Almost kind of the head coach of the Vikings. So the Vikings have narrowed things down to 3 or 4 head coaches. We had D'Amico Ryans, defensive coordinator for the 49ers, Raheem Morris, defensive coordinator for the LA Rams. You had Kevin O'Connell, offensive coordinator for the Rams. And then we started having all of this Harbaugh talk come out of nowhere. You also had Patrick Graham, who's the defensive coordinator for the Giants, and he got a 9-hour interview with the Vikings on Tuesday. But he actually just signed as the defensive coordinator, I believe, for the Raiders today. But we had all this Harbaugh talk come. All signs had actually been pointing towards Kevin O'Connell as being the favorite for the Vikings until Harbaugh talk started happening. We really started going hard after Harbaugh. And I was, here or there on whether or not I wanted Harbaugh on the team, because obviously I know some about him from his time with the 49ers and his history with Stanford and so on and so forth. And obviously Michigan recently. But I knew that there were going to be pros and cons bringing him in as the head coach. And I really wanted to kind of do a deep dive into, are those cons really cons, or what's going on there? And I ended up selling myself on Harbaugh. And I started drinking the Kool-Aid. I was like, hey, this guy is not going to come back to the NFL unless he's going to get a championship. And he might have a shelf life. He might mortgage your future to an extent. You might only have him for 3-4 years before he moves on.
All right.
But my Vikings franchise has not won a Super Bowl. I understand. Honestly, I was at the point where it's like, if in the next 3 or 4 years I can see the Vikings win a Super Bowl and then we're shit for another 20 years after that, I'm kind of for it. It's like championship before I die.
You're preaching to the fucking choir as a Browns fan over here.
Championship before I die. That's what I'm shooting for. All right.
Me too.
So I was starting to drink the Kool-Aid. I end up having the interview with Harbaugh. He leaves without even an offer being extended to him. Harbaugh had a lot of good things to say about the team. He's talked to some reporters since saying, like, hey, this is a great organization, great facilities, great coaching, great front office. They're going to do great things, but our energy levels are not on the same bandwidth, and that he just decided to go back to Michigan. All right. In which then the Vikings went out and went after their number one guy, originally Kevin O'Connell. They've already talked to the other head coach candidates and said, hey, we're going to go in a different direction. The problem with O'Connell is that he is part of your Rams team that is going to Super Bowl, and a contract cannot be offered to him until after the Super Bowl is complete.
Correct.
So it is all set up for Kevin O'Connell to be the new head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. However, they cannot put pen to paper just yet.
He will be the head coach, but obviously we know that, can happen. But I think Kevin O'Connell is not a bad pickup. Now, we talked about this a little bit before, text messages and stuff. I thought that he didn't have nearly as big a hand in that offense as he does. Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it.
Yeah, Torres decided to put a meme on the Facebook page. I don't know if it's just supposed to be derogatory towards Minnesota. I don't really know why he put it on the Lineman Lounge page, but that's fine.
Hey, content is content. We always want Torres in there. So
absolutely.
But so I went back and I did a little bit more reading, a little bit more study after you sent me some stuff. The guy's pretty involved in what they do. They're on the offensive side of the ball. I think that he will bring a similar system to what McVay has. I think there will obviously need to be some tweaks. The personnel is not exactly the same between those two teams.
I don't expect Justin Jefferson, who already is one of the top receivers in the league, I don't expect him to be Cooper Kupp or anything like that. I do think that we'll see a McVay-like offensive system, but Kevin O'Connell, my hope, of course, is going to be that we're going to mold our offensive system towards the players that we have.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting to see because, Kevin O'Connell, first-time head coach, he was a long-time backup in the NFL, both with the Patriots and a couple other teams, I believe the Browns, the Jets. He's bounced around a whole bunch. It's more going to be seeing, he is regarded as one of those bright minds in the NFL. He's been looked at as head coach in the past, even back to when he was with the Washington football team, now the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that as well.
He was their offensive coordinator there, a little bit of crossover between O'Connell and Kirk Cousins. So there's some lines that can be drawn there, positive and negative. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. So look, the Vikings are the Wilfs and the Wilf family, they like big names. They like splashy moves. They do. And for them to not go with that splashy name hire of Harbaugh tells me that they really are invested in going a different direction with this team. New, innovative, collaborative, trying something different than what I've been watching for the past decade with my Vikings team. And it excites me. I'm ready for that fresh start. I don't want to see a rebuild with the team because I think that we do have some really good young pieces in place. But going with a new direction and a rebuild of sorts is something that, it's painful, but I'm ready for it.
Yeah. You guys are going to need to do obviously some different things. This makes me wonder what they're going to do with Kirk. Is Kirk going to be on the move now? Because he doesn't really seem to fit that Ram style system.
It's so tough to understand. Look, if we keep Kirk or we get rid of Kirk, I'm going to be happy either way because I just want to see what sort of direction they want to take this team. And I'm ready to watch this happen. The one thing that is for sure is that something is going to happen with Kirk Cousins, whether he is extended or he is traded. I don't see him getting released because there's too much dead cap hit, and we want to get something in return for it. But his cap right now, we can't operate the team. He's over 20% of the cap for the team. No team has ever won a Super Bowl with a quarterback taking up more than 13% of their cap space. This year would be the exception if the Rams win with Matt Stafford.
Right.
So maybe you can start to parlay that into a little bit of your sports betting if you want to. But I think O'Connell having time with Kirk before, he knows now the good that Kirk can bring. He also knows some of the bad that Kirk can bring. Kirk Cousins can be a average, above average, and sometimes even a great quarterback, especially statistically. But Arif Hassan reported for The Athletic. He's a big Vikings guy, has a Vikings podcast that I listen to every time that they play their podcast. He had a great piece in The Athletic going over Kirk Cousins where he only seems to be a fair weather quarterback type situation. He needs everything to be going correct in order for him to perform very, very well. He's not an alibi quarterback. No. And one thing about the NFL is nothing is going to go perfect. You have to be able to win in situations where the play breaks down, when things aren't going as planned.
You can get a perfect drive, but you're very rarely going to see a perfect game, perfect week. It doesn't happen very often.
If I'm the new GM for the Vikings, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, with Kevin O'Connell, KOC, Camcock.
Hell yeah, I like that.
If I'm that group, I'm ready for a fresh start. I'm going to move Kirk Cousins, even if we're not getting like a first round pick in return. if we're getting a second or something like that, it's time for a change. Move him, get what you can for picks, start to rebuild on the defensive side of the ball, because the offense already right now is pretty good. The O-line could do a little bit better. And we could, obviously get a couple extra players here or there, but the offense is all right now. We're ready to be one of those top 10 offenses with the correct system. And that's if Kirk were to stay. But the defensive side of the ball, we've just not been able to retain players. We've not been able to bring in new, fresh blood because of the contract that Kirk Cousins has right now. We have cap issues because he's getting paid like a top 3 quarterback, top 5 quarterback in the league, but he isn't producing like one of those game-changing guys like a Mahomes or something like that.
Right.
So the contract has to be worked out with him. I think we move on from him. Kwesi is one of those analytics guys. He's going to say, hey, we can bring in a lower talented quarterback, and that might equate to 2 to 4 less wins per year. But then we're able to put that money towards good use, towards rebuilding the defense. And that's going to bring us back up with a couple extra wins. So maybe a net total of 1 or 2 less wins per year. And now we're able to focus on building this team up again, going after a new quarterback of the future. And if you're able to get a rookie quarterback on a rookie quarterback salary, that's when you can really start to see these tremendous gains like you have seen with early Kansas City Chiefs when Mahomes was in there, like you see with Joe Burrow out there in Cincinnati, like you're able to see with the Chargers. When you're able to go out and get one of these top-end quarterbacks in the draft on that low salary, you're able to build your team out while that quarterback is still on their rookie salary. And then after you start paying that quarterback more and they're able to put the team on their shoulders, that's when that quarterback salary can be really high and you can still be successful. That's the way that I would go with it if I'm them. But if they're able to extend Kirk, spread his cap out a little bit more, not give him a ton more money or anything like that, then, hey, you've got your quarterback position figured out for the near term. You still have to start looking towards the draft for a quarterback of the future that you can get on that rookie salary.
Yeah.
But you can stay competitive. Look, Kirk is not going to be the head of a team that goes, with 4 wins on the year. He's going to make you
He'll get you 8.
average. Yeah, you're going to be that 7 to 8 range, but it might limit the rest of your roster.
Yeah,
that's
it
the problem.
Will. I mean, there's some quarterbacks playing this weekend, playing right now. Malik Willis looks like he is a fucking stud.
That's that. We have, the Senior Bowl going on right now. We actually have it on the TV here in the room. Malik Willis through Senior Bowl week and this game has looked very good. The guy's got insane arm talent. He's very athletic. He's got some mechanical stuff to work through for sure. And his system wasn't really fitting him in college, to be honest. If he goes to the right situation in the NFL, I think that he could be a very, very good quarterback. And I've started to champion Malik Willis. I like him a lot.
I think he's moving up my board right now to QB1.
I think by the end of the process, he will be the first quarterback off the board. Yeah. He'll probably be a top 10 pick, and that's as high as a quarterback really should go in this draft.
Agreed,
because it's a rough quarterback draft.
There's not a game-changing quarterback. Now, Malik Willis, I think, could grow into that, but he is very raw still.
Yes.
He's got a ton of talent, but he's not there yet. He's a guy that needs to sit for a year. So if the Vikings could make a play, go up and get a Malik Willis and sit him behind Kirk for a year, I think that works out very well for your organization.
Look, my dream scenario actually is that we get rid of Kirk, we get a couple extra picks, and that is going to allow the Vikings to move up in the draft in order to get a Malik Willis,
right.
Allow Malik Willis to sit, and then we go out and we get ourselves a Gardner Minshew. That's my prime candidate. But we could also go out Mariota. Marcus Mariota is unrestricted free agent this year. Jameis Winston.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not my favorite.
Jameis didn't look terrible when he was in there. I mean,
but coming off an ACL, these are going to be bottom barrel quarterbacks.
Go get Mitch Trubisky and just turn off one half the field.
I mean, that would suck. It would hurt to watch. But you go out and you get one of these guys that can be a starter in the league, albeit average at best, who can operate your offense. Have them compete with Kellen Mond, who did not get a fair shake. I don't think that he's the answer either, but with better quarterback coaching, better offensive coaching, who knows what you have in them. We need to figure that out as a team. Have that middle tier starter and Kellen Mond fight it out
Yeah.
this year while you have Malik Willis learning in the background, a young quarterback that learning in the background,
Right.
Because that's your future plan. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, then you got to start over again anyways. The thing with Kirk Cousins is that the contract is just going to limit us for the next 3 to 4 years or whatever that contract's going to be for him. So you're really going to have to hope that the offensive system brings out a lot more out of Kirk and that you're hitting a lot more lightning through the draft and with bargain free agents. And you look like 80% of the time free agents just don't work out. They don't live up to their contract that they get. It's just the way that the NFL works. So it's tough to say that that's going to happen. That's why I'm willing to move on from Kirk Cousins. It's going into the unknown by getting rid of him. You're losing a player that can be that above average to top tier type quarterback, and you just don't get that every day in the NFL. Quarterbacks are always, high priority for teams.
Oh yeah.
So it's definitely taking a big risk. But I think that the analytics side of it is Quest is going to go, this guy's getting paid way more than he should be for what the production that we're getting, which means we need to make a change. I think that's the way that it's going to go. And then we'll start seeing either this year or next year, we're going to start seeing the Vikings delve into the draft a little bit more to find a guy that can be that future quarterback for the team.
Well, right now, I think the guy is Malik Willis. I'm not sold on Pickett or most of these other guys, but one guy I am kind of interested in seeing intrigues me a little bit. And this
Bailey Zappi.
Bailey Zappi. This kind of goes into answering Dean's question. One of the guys that I'm interested in watching is Bailey Zappi. So this is not a big guy. He is not. I mean, he's 6'1", does not have the rocket arm like a Malik Willis, but he is very efficient with the ball. He is incredibly accurate. This is a guy that I think probably won't go till 3rd or 4th round. So if for me as a Browns fan, if I want to bring in a little bit of young competition for Baker, this is a guy that I'm looking at because I'm not going to go up. I'm not going to reach for a Pickett. I'm not going to reach. I mean, Malik Willis, if he falls into our lap and we take him, I'm not going to be sad. But I would like to see us go wide receiver in round 1. So Bailey Zappi, I want to see. I haven't got to see him on the field yet. I want to see how he does. He did not start out the week really great at Senior Bowl.
Yeah, it's been a very rainy practice week out there. It's been rough, and you can tell that him being in a different situation had kind of ruffled his feathers a little bit, and that's not to be unexpected. You've got a quarterback going from one sort of an air raid type system into a very different scenario here that he's not comfortable with, not used to. But as the week has progressed, he's shown a lot as far as growing and getting better within this Senior Bowl system, and he's looked better. So it'll be interesting to watch him actually play during the Senior Bowl and see how he does, because look, he put up prolific numbers this year.
Yeah.
Big time numbers. And it's not just because of the air raid system where he's doing nothing but passing, but he's actually got some arm talent. He looks like he can be at the very least a decent backup quarterback in the NFL.
I agree. I absolutely agree. He actually kind of reminds me a little bit of a Mac Jones right now with the way he has timing on his passes. Now, don't get me wrong. I would love a dude with a laser rocket arm because we play in the AFC North. We're going to be in some weather sometimes, but this is a guy I think that we could bring in, provide some competition, maybe sit back. I mean, there's tons of other quarterbacks that we could bring in for competition. I see us maybe bringing in a Trubisky. I don't love that either, but he is a guy that I am very interested to see. But before we get too far into that, let's get back onto the coaches talks a little bit, okay? Because this is going to be a big portion of the show, something that we absolutely need to address, okay? So we had Kevin O'Connell is anticipated to be hired, Matt Eberflus, Brian Daboll, Nathaniel Hackett, Doug Peterson, and Josh McDaniels. Those are the guys that have been hired. You know what all of those guys have in common?
All whiteys.
They're all white.
Crackers.
They're all white. Now, some of these guys have earned a spot and they deserve a head coaching spot. But we have had some reports come out and a lawsuit filed against the NFL saying that coaches are not being looked at because of their race. They're being paid to tank. And Brian Flores is at the head of this.
Yep.
Brian Flores is a damn good football coach. I would take Brian Flores in any portion of our staff. I wouldn't want to get rid of Stefanski, but I would love to have him on our staff as a football coach. I think he can be a head coach. He took a Dolphins team that was supposed to be fucking terrible and got
made them competitive both years.
I think 6 wins his first year when they everybody thought they were going defeated. This year, 8 wins, right? I think they got to
something like that. Yeah.
They won 7 straight.
Yep.
And he has had interviews throughout the league and has said that his interviews were bullshit. That they brought him in to justify the Rooney Rule.
Yeah.
And he's not being given a fair shake in some of these interviews. And now, speaking out, he has been let go.
Yeah. So for everyone that doesn't know, the Rooney Rule has been instituted by the NFL and it's kind of evolved as the years have gone along. But basically, teams that are going after new head coaches, they have to bring in color or coaches of color or minorities in for interviews. The intention is to have more coaches of color and minorities hired into head coaching positions. The rules have even been updated so far this year where not only do you have to interview minority coaches, but you have to bring at least one of them in for an in-person interview. So a lot of teams are doing these Zoom interviews and things like that. And then they'll do second phase interviews where they bring guys in for that face-to-face. So Flores has been around the league getting some interviews here and there, probably notably with the Texans, where I think it's probably a really good fit for him with that connection with Deshaun Watson and that whole situation.
Right.
But he went and talked with the Bills, and it sounded like he could have possibly been getting the Bills job. At least there was a mix up there, possibly with old Belichick. And then obviously he went and interviewed with the Broncos, where he is claiming that you've got John Elway coming in drunk,
just looking all disheveled as shit.
Some really weird stuff going on. He's making some pretty big claims that he's just being floated around for the Rooney Rule, not really being given a whole lot of true attention. It's really interesting because his departure from Miami was not expected.
No, I didn't think
people didn't expect that they were going to cut him, but then they did, and there's a lot of kind of bad PR and stuff coming out of there about how he's saying shit in the locker room, that he's abrasive with some of his players, things like that. And, it didn't sound good at the time, but now if what he's saying, he's making claims that he was told to tank, that he was told to take losses and get paid like $100K per game for these losses from owner Stephen Ross. That's not a good sounding thing. That's not a good look for the Dolphins.
That's terrible for the Dolphins.
And maybe some of this bad stuff that came out about him was being kind of conflated by sources in the league to make him look bad. I
think that is I think there's some truth to both of those. And I think he probably was being abrasive. I don't think he ever believed in Tua. And I think that some of these things got pumped up and pushed out because of what happened. The Rooney Rule doesn't work. It doesn't. I wish it did, but it doesn't work. Because some of these guys are going to interviews, they're literally just there,
check the blocks,
to be the token guy. They got to check the block. Now, I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to speak for the black community. I am a short, fat, white guy. Okay. But if somebody called me in for an interview because the NFL had to interview short, fat, white guys to meet a requirement, that would fucking piss me off because I'm going there for no reason. They're wasting my time. If this is something that is going on, and this is something that we have seen happen because of the Rooney Rule, where they have to bring somebody in, I would be very upset. And I think they have a justifiable reason. I mean, Flores, I think, has a justifiable reason to be upset if I'm just there to check the block. That's not what I'm coaching for. That's, if you want me, bring me in. If not, the Rooney Rule is just, it's creating this weird tension when there really shouldn't be. Okay. Yeah. I would love to see more black coaches in the league, black GMs, black owners, But that's just not the way things are going right now, and it should change. The NFL is trying to do things to improve that, where you're getting extra draft picks if you develop a person of color in your system and they get a job elsewhere. But the Rooney Rule right now, in the way that it is constructed, does not work.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. It is tough for us to talk about because we are, like you said, we're two white guys.
Yeah.
We can't completely put ourselves in this scenario, in the situation of where these coaches are at. I've always been a person that, like, I don't care about what your skin color is. I care about your results, your performance. And for all intents and purposes, there's multiple coaches out there of color, minority coaches, that do deserve to be looked at as head coaches. Look, if Flores comes out of this without a job, it's understandable now because he just took a huge shot at the shield.
Oh, absolutely.
But before that happening, I see no way that this guy doesn't give him those head coach spots. But you've also got your Byron Leftwiches. You've got your Eric Bieniemys. You've got guys out there that have done enough that they weren't being looked at as head coaches, and I think that they're good enough to be head coaches. But I'm also not in the front office. I don't know everything about these guys. I'm about performance, and maybe there's performance issues that we're seeing or not seeing with some of these coaches that kind of push teams off of them. But we only have Mike Tomlin out there right now.
That's it. That's the only one.
Yeah. And that is curious, and it makes you wonder, is it that you have old white ownership that is not willing to take on, they don't connect with these coaches as much and stuff like that, and that's why they're not being brought in as head coach? I mean, I would like to think that these owners are going to say, hey, I want the best opportunity to have my team be a winner out there, and I don't care if you're black, white, red, purple, whatever, come in and coach my team. I mean, let's be real. A majority of players on NFL rosters are players of color.
Yes.
And a coach of color probably is going to be able to connect with those players better.
Yeah. They have cultural similarities.
You would think that would make sense, that you'd want a coach that can connect with your players and pull the best out of them in there. It's, Kaepernick and stuff talked about things about like this happening in the league before. We're hearing more of it now with Brian Flores. If it is true that, people of color are being discriminated against in these processes, it's going to be kind of tough to prove, but also it's something that we absolutely don't want in our NFL.
No, absolutely.
As fans, we don't want it in our NFL. So I'm really interested to see where this goes, because if that's the case, like, by all means, the NFL needs to take two to the chest on this one.
Yeah.
They're
not going to, because they got to protect the shield, but they absolutely should in this case, I think.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is you are having other coaches come out and say, yeah, we've seen this as well. We've been quiet about it. Flores might not get another NFL head coaching gig because of the way that he's coming at the NFL right now. And he's said as much. He's like, look, I love coaching. I want to coach in this league. And I know that I'm putting my neck out on the line to do this, but someone needs to do it. And then you're having other guys like Hugh Jackson come out and say, some of these claims, yeah, I agree with them, that I'm seeing the racism and stuff like that, and that he's been offered money to tank. But I'll let you get into that a little bit more, because that focuses more around your Browns team.
Yeah. So what Brian Flores is doing is, in my opinion, very brave, because he is putting his career on the line to call out an issue that I think probably is happening a little bit in the NFL, because there's it's a league run by a bunch of old white guys. Okay. I'm just going to call a spade a spade. Now, what Hugh Jackson is doing, in my opinion, is fucking despicable, because he's full of shit. Hugh Jackson was not paid to lose. He was on CNN either last night or this morning and clarified his comments and said, no, I was never paid to take losses. Now, the situation in Cleveland was not good. There was a distinct plan to tank that Sashi Brown and other people had engineered to get better picks to improve the team later on down the line. And for Hugh Jackson to try to jump on and ride the coattails of Brian Flores is absolutely despicable, to try to lump yourself in. No, Hugh, we understand we set you up to lose for a couple of years, and then the plan in year 3 was to get better, play better, because we are going to give you some fucking talent. Hugh Jackson, in that season, they started out terrible. They were 2-5 underneath Hugh Jackson in year 3. Then he gets fired, They go 5-3 the rest of the way. The talent was there. Hugh was not a good coach in the NFL as a head coach. Other people got way more out of what was there. He went on Twitter and made some comments that he was paid. It was a good amount. And then he goes on CNN this morning and says, I was not, offered money to lose. So he is literally just trying to get his name back out in this. And that doesn't help this fucking situation at all. I have lost all respect for Hugh Jackson in the things that he had to go through. I understand those 2 years of tanking. He didn't want to do that. Nobody wants to lose, but teams in the NFL absolutely tank games. Okay. That it's true. It's real. Even though nobody will ever say it. Maybe it's not the coaches or the players tanking, but I'll tell you what, a GM will go ahead and they'll trade, I don't know, Jalen Ramsey. I don't know, every other good fucking player on the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I mean, if you look at the Houston Texans this year, that looked like they were trying their ass off to tank. And I mean, yeah, they are getting a very high draft pick this year. But it wasn't because of the coaching or the players not trying to play their balls off, because they won some games that they absolutely should not have.
Yeah, they absolutely did. You're not going to see many coaches or players doing it. I think it comes from the front office, but tanking is real. And what happened sucked for Hugh Jackson. But this bullshit is just out of line. Brian Flores is doing something that, should be talked about. How the Rooney Rule is not working, how they're bringing coaches in just to check a fucking box. That is, taking hopefully a step forward. We'll see how the NFL combats against this. We've already heard the Broncos and several other teams come out and make statements saying this is unequivocally false. And then our ownership group, the Haslams, came out and absolutely buried. I just forgot his name.
Hugh Jackson.
So I'm pissed off. Buried Hugh Jackson, saying, no, we had a plan in place. Hugh never took responsibility for anything that ever happened in this building. And as soon as we fired him, we got fucking better. So this whole scenario is not, we need to see some other minority head coaches or GMs in areas. A minority owner would be really cool. I think we only have one Asian American up in the Bills, and then we got Shad Khan. But we don't have any black owners, and there are not that many black billionaires in the United States. There's 7 of them.
I believe that the Denver Broncos, actually, with their team being for sale, that it's going to be a group, a conglomeration, and I believe that they actually have African American man. I couldn't.
Was it Robert Smith?
I'm not positive.
It's Robert Smith or David Stewart, one of the two. So I got the list up right here. So you got Robert Smith, David Stewart, Oprah. Oprah's not buying an NFL team. It would be interesting, but you got Kanye West. Kanye's not buying an NFL team. Michael Jordan, he's not buying an NFL team. He's already doing the whole NBA thing. Jay-Z, I could see Jay-Z trying to do it, being a part of a group. That'd be cool. And then you also have Tyler Perry. That's your group. But we don't, unless we get one of these, the Robert Smith or the David Stewart, worth $5 billion, $4 billion, respectively. I don't know if we're gonna get one of those. And even if they do make a play, NFL owners get to vote on who they let into their group.
True. They
don't, just because you can buy them doesn't mean the NFL owners will allow you to buy them. So that is something that needs to be addressed. They need to find a way to get more diversity in a league that is predominantly made up of African Americans.
True. It's I'm not willing to, at this point, condemn Hugh Jackson because I'm not knowledgeable on the situation enough. It is weird that he's kind of wavered back and forth on some of these claims and things like that. I feel like there is probably a lot of stuff that won't come to light about this situation. But it's also tough to, without direct correspondence saying as much, derive intent behind a lot of these things. I doubt you're going to find any paperwork in NFL offices saying we will not hire black coaches or we will not hire black GMs. That makes it difficult to derive true intent behind a lot of these things. And that's why it's going to be very interesting to see what happens going forward with Brian Flores. Now, look, if I'm the Texans, I'm still hiring him because I think that's the easiest way.
I would hire him
I mean, we know he's a good coach.
Yep.
I think
Deshaun would play for him.
Deshaun very well could play for him. It's going to have a lot of your players backing the coach at that point.
Yep.
And it's a ballsy move by the Texans to say, like, hey, we're not part of the problem. And NFL, hey, maybe the NFL is a problem, but we are not part of the problem. Because, look, we just had David Cooley, minority coach, and we're going to bring in another guy, Brian Flores. I think that would be the smart play for them. I just don't think the NFL is going to let them. I think they're going to get too much pressure from the NFL now saying that Brian Flores is poison. Don't touch him.
Yeah. So I don't know if, once again, I don't know if we'll actually get any correspondence that says do not hire Brian Flores, because that would be a massive, massive lawsuit.
Look, you've got the Pro Bowl and the Senior Bowl happening right now. There's a lot of teams involved in all these things out here. They're going to be chit-chatting.
Oh, yeah, they're going to be talking for sure.
Yeah.
And you'll never get
there'll be closed-door meetings.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it happens all the time. Now, the Texans have had a lot of interest in Josh McCown, and I mean, I like Josh McCown. I think he should be a coach somewhere. I'm not sure if he should be a head coach right away.
Look, that's the thing, is that Josh McCown has had absolutely zero coaching experience. No high school, no college, no nothing. I like Josh McCown. I've got no fucking clue if he can be a head coach.
Not a clue. I know Brian Flores can, though.
Exactly. If they were to hire McCown, I think that's a bad look. Honestly,
I think
it sounds like
I think that's who they want. I think that's who they want to hire, but they have not pulled the trigger because of the optics that it will put out there for the NFL.
Absolutely, and it's real interesting. Look, I hope Flores actually gets that job. I think that's the best move for that team. I think it's a great move for him. I just don't know if it'll happen.
I don't know either, man. And it's tough. Like this is a shit situation, but it's something that it needs to be talked about. It needs to be in a national conversation. That way, hopefully we can, there will be some progress on this front, and we can see, because there are a lot of very qualified African-Americans who could and should be coaching in the NFL.
Absolutely.
So, all right. We got anything else on the coaching? Actually, so since we were talking about, some correspondence that will never get released, let's bring up the Washington Commanders. Another place that will never hear what actually happened inside that organization, but they got a new name.
The U.S. government is still pushing for information, actually. The Washington football team in the NFL has said a lot of the conversations that are being requested are attorney-client privilege type stuff, and so they can't release that, but the NFL is still saying, like, hey, you have until February 14th to release this information to us, or else we'll start going through alternate means. It's still a fight that's happening, and I would say that at least some of the information is probably actually going to come out a little more. That look, when you start getting politicians and stuff involved, they're going to start twisting a titty here or there in order to get what they want. They might not get everything, but I think we'll still hear a little bit more of what happened out there and whether or not that information ends up getting doctored or whatever.
Redacted.
It's redacted. There will probably be a little bit of information, but why we're bringing up the Washington football team is because they are now the Washington Commanders. They did release their new team name, logos, things like that, uniforms. And in general, you hear more negative responses to things and positive responses to things. But let's just say we're hearing a lot of negatives about this. All right. So Commanders, it doesn't sound like
people weren't necessarily on board with it. We were kind of okay with the Commander's name.
It's nothing special.
No, it's not. I mean, it's not great. It's not terrible. They could have gone a lot worse directions, I think.
Absolutely.
I don't like their uniforms or their logo, though.
Yeah, a lot of people are really hating on that. Look, the burgundy and gold is a classic NFL looking uniform.
Yep.
I think that their switch, when they went from the Redskins to the Washington football team, they maintained that uniform. They just stripped it of the logo.
Right.
I think that they should have probably stuck with that for the most part with these new uniforms. Now, they have somewhat of the same color scheme, but they've completely changed up the uniform. Big part of that team is the heritage of the way that uniform looks and everything. Add some updates or whatever you want to do, but don't completely drop your heritage. And I think that that's kind of what they did with the uniforms. There's some things I like, some things I don't. But in general, overall, I don't feel great about the uniforms. I think the name is okay. It's kind of boring. They could have done a lot of better things with that, but in 3 years' time, I don't think we're going to be talking about it anymore. It's tough to move on from a team name that you've had forever. One that obviously has racial implications that are difficult for people.
Right.
So I guess, positive move in changing the team name, but I think a lot of people started to kind of just get behind the Washington football team.
I think people were starting to kind of just come be like, yeah, that's what we're called, the Washington football team. I don't hate the name Commanders. I don't like the uniform. I don't like the logo. I think those need some updates. The logo looks like you built it on Madden 20 years ago.
Yeah, and the team name honestly kind of sounds like that too. Like,
yeah,
you don't have rights to certain team names, so we're just going to go with this kind of generic thing.
Yeah, there is a little bit of feel of that. I know there's a lot of Washington fans that do not like this new thing.
Yeah. So, look, it's tough to change your team name, team colors, things like that, move a team around. The Washington Commanders is probably here to stay. However, if you have someone come in and buy that team, because, look, the ownership of that team ain't great.
No,
and
it ain't
NFL
good.
Could very well force them to sell. That's when you could actually see this only happen for a couple of years.
Yeah, I
think the Commanders for a couple of years. There's potential for that, because if you have a Bezos or something come in and he wants to be the Washington next day Amazon Express or whatever,
they will be the Amazon next day, because he will just dump the money in to say, we're going to change it, guys.
The Wiener Rockets or something like that.
I don't know if Wiener Rock. I mean,
doesn't roll off the tongue really well.
The Red
Bezos
Rockets.
is a weird.
The Red Rockets could work though.
That could work.
Yeah.
There's potential for it to be somewhat of a short-lived name. It's would not be the greatest look for them to like switch names 4 times in, like 8 years or something like that, going from Redskins to football team to Commanders to Amazon Express. But it could happen if this team gets sold. I mean, and it would be better to do it quick and get it over with, and move on from that, than to stick with the Commanders for a decade and then be like, okay, now we're going to actually change things up.
Yeah.
So we'll see if the Commanders name sticks around. I kind of expect it to, but anything's possible, especially if this team ends up getting sold.
Yeah, it should be sold. So it's always tough to make the transition. Like the Indians went to the Guardians. We basically kept the majority of our scheme the same, and we only changed the IN to a Gar. So that there's not a massive change for the Cleveland Guardians coming up, but both of these new name changes have not gone over very well amongst the fans, and really basically anywhere on social media, people are like, these names kind of fucking suck.
Yep.
So, all right. So let's talk about a little bit of the Senior Bowl. So we haven't got to watch too much of it, but we talked about one guy, Bailey Zappi. I don't think he's quite been in yet, that I'm interested to see. We see Sam Howell going in, scoring a tud there.
And Kenny Pickett a little bit.
Kenny Pickett, we saw him for a little bit. But there is a guy that I'm very excited about. I think will be around in the late rounds and can absolutely be electric for a team like my Cleveland Browns, who run that Shanahan style wide zone offense. It's basically the West Coast offense from back in the day. It was just some more zone scheme concepts. And it's Calvin Austin III, wide receiver out of Memphis. Now, this guy is not very big, 5'8", 170 pounds, getting some comps to a Tyreek Hill. And this dude is fucking lightning in a bottle. He is so fast, quick, in short space. He was a punt returner, can take it the distance, had a really good year. He's put up production 2 years in a row. Now, the size is going to scare some teams off, for sure. That is absolutely going to happen. This is a guy that, as a Browns fan, who we need some help at wide receiver. We run that Shanahan wide zone scheme and also need some help in the return game. This is the guy that I'm really hoping the Browns go get in those later rounds.
Let's take a look at him. Absolutely. And so for people watching, you're going to hear some names from us that are not the household names because the draft process really is just starting for fans.
With Senior Bowl is kind of the start of when everybody starts getting into
we plan on, NFL, we have our Super Bowl next week, and we will talk much more about the Super Bowl next week in that show. But from there on, we are going to have to, obviously talk about things in the NFL that are part of the offseason, which is one of my favorite times of the year, quite honestly. I love really getting into draft and scouting profiles of these players, really diving into some of the film of what they've done through their college career, comps, things like that. And Mike and I plan on doing that. So that way, we'll come in, we'll talk about different position groups each week, and we'll talk about some of the big name guys that are going to be going first round, things like that you should know. But we're also going to plan on doing a deep dive into some people where you can see some of your sleepers or more late round guys that we like, names that you won't recognize. And hopefully you can get on board with us and start to follow these guys through the process and watching them get drafted. A couple of the guys that I have and names I've been watching for the Senior Bowl that I'm really interested in. Number one is a tight end out of UCLA, and this guy probably could go in the first round. Greg Dulcich. He's a big tight end, great hair, fucking phenomenal mustache. Sometimes he doesn't always have the mustache going for him, but he is apparently been just showing out at the Senior Bowl. He's been a super awesome target for his quarterbacks. I think that he has the potential to be a Kittle type of tight end.
Oh wow, that's a big comp.
From what he had this. I watched just a little bit of cut up of him yesterday, but he had this 75-yard touchdown that just looked fantastic. He's, I believe, like 6'5", 250. Big boy. He can chip around and block a little bit, but he's got good soft hands. He's got decent speed and some moves. He juked players out on that 75-yard play in order to get the touchdown. So he's someone that I'm really watching. And then Boston College offensive lineman Zion Johnson. He's played basically every position on the interior of the offensive line there for Boston College, and he's really been showing out here in this Senior Bowl week. So those are two names that I don't know a ton about yet, but they're definitely guys that I have on my list to look into going through this draft process.
Yeah, so I got one lineman I'm really interested in right now. The guy from Arizona State. We are here in Arizona. Tackle Kellen Dyche. This kid was really good, very good in pass blocking. Now I'm not sure he's great in the run game right now, but I mean the NFL's kind of become much more of a passing league. Had a huge win rate. I think he only gave up 7 pressures this year. So that's a guy that I'm looking for on that offensive line, and a guy from Arizona. So should be able to find some pretty good stuff on him and start getting into some of these guys, start doing our draft profiles, but that's not going to get going until after the Super Bowl. So next week, big week. I mean, most of our conversation next week is going to be on the Super Bowl. There might be some other things that come out, but I am very pumped.
Looks like your boy Bailey Zappi is about to.
Bailey Zappi, 6'3" and an 1/8. So teams are not going to like that. However, he had an NCAA record, 5,967 yards and 62 touchdowns. This kid slings it all
6 games
over
with
the
5
yard.
or more touchdowns.
6 games with 5 or more touchdowns. That's insane. So I'm excited to see this kid. I want to. This is a guy that I could be okay with Cleveland bringing in, especially if he's there in the 3rd round. I don't think we go out early and get him. Got to get rid of the ball though. Held on to the ball too long there. Cleveland we need to go wide receiver, probably interior defensive line, first 2 rounds. And then if we want to go and get a quarterback, we look somewhere in the 3rd round. And that's where Zabby is kind of projected right now to be 3rd, 4th round. Maybe he gets up a little higher. And if he does fall, I'd still be okay taking a flyer on him, maybe 5th round if he's still there. So
absolutely. And with that being said, going over all these players and stuff like that, if you're watching the show and you have a guy maybe for a team that you root for that isn't as much of a household name, or even one of those guys that's projected to go 1st round, message us on the socials, hit up the email, let us know about this player. Say, hey, can you guys do a little bit of a deep dive into this guy? We'll absolutely go into any of those names that you want us to look into, and we'll start letting you know what our thoughts are on the player, what some of the national media or scouts are saying about this guy. We're absolutely about doing that. So if you have a player that you want us to look into during this draft process, let us know. We'll absolutely do that for you.
Yeah, 100%. So you guys can hit us up on Twitter, Facebook. You can comment on the YouTube videos. We are on TikTok again. We did our first one. We are not banned yet. That is super dope. Did another one. Kind of got some video of the Thunderbirds out there at work. That was kind of cool. Brought the kids out. They enjoyed it. Scared the shit out of Elizabeth, though, when they flew right over us.
Yeah.
So any of those socials, you guys can send us an email at linemanlounge@gmail.com. And I think that's it. That's all the ways that people. Oh, and you guys, if you want, you can call in on the Lineman Lounge hotline, 520-338-9771.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Well, we got anything else, man? I think that about covers most of the stuff we wanted to get to today, right?
Yeah, that's, it's not necessarily a down week. There's a lot of different stories and stuff going on through the NFL and other sports and whatnot. But really, we're just kind of in that holding pattern for next week.
We
the
are.
big game.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for next week. But yeah, I kind of figured this is going to be a little bit of a weird week. If you guys want, there is some NFL football on this week, kind of. The Pro Bowl is being played. Actually, that's something that we didn't want to talk about, right? Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
Fucking sucks. What they should do is get rid of the Pro Bowl and just have a weekend-long skills competition, because that's fun. I like the skills competition. That stuff is fun. I remember when I was a kid watching the quarterbacks go through the gauntlet and making throws at receivers. That is exciting. That is something that people will actually tune in to watch. They'll, crack a beer, sit there and root for their guys, see who screws up, who looks really good. But the Pro Bowl ain't it. It's not real football. They don't blitz. There's so much stuff that doesn't happen.
We've seen things about players setting records in the Pro Bowl and stuff like that, but you're playing like, it's not two-hand touch, but these guys are just kind of out there to not get injured and have fun.
Yeah. Well, they're getting paid to be out there. So
yeah. It's the skills competition. That's entertainment. Yeah. That is fun to watch. The game itself, the concept of it is cool, but there really isn't much of an incentive for the players to do anything special in it other than be there and get paid. And the last thing, of course, that you'd want to see is anyone get injured. So they're not going out there 100%.
They're not playing hard at all.
They're not, going out there to crush another guy. Maybe if they have, some sort of a beef with a person, but in general, they just try to keep it professional and just play a little football game that doesn't have a whole lot of implications. But like you said, those skills competitions, those are fun. Those are the cut-ups that you still will see on your Facebook and things like that from decades past, where you have players going out there and doing passing competitions and stuff like that. This year we've got dodgeball. They had a race.
Yeah,
fastest player Michael Parsons.
Michael Parsons got it. Well, Tyreek didn't even really get down to run, so
he wasn't even in like runner's outfit or anything.
No,
like
he was still wearing sweats
pretty quick. So, but still, it's fun to watch these things because it's fun things that the players are not having to really put their bodies on the line for, things like that. And it's just fun to watch.
It is. I would like to see some linemen go out there and do some of those quarterback drills. Get some guys doing different things. That'd be a lot of fun.
Have them go out do receiver type drills.
Oh yeah, just get practicing for that thick six.
I mean, realistically, you can be doing like the draft, the combine type of drills and stuff like that, and see how players would perform in non-traditional things for their position. Right. That'd be interesting to watch. But maybe that's ideas for future years. I don't know. The dodgeball and stuff like that this year is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, dodgeball, it's happened a couple times. I'm a big fan of the dodgeball stuff. That's always fun. Your boy, Jetta's sealed it, won it. One-handed catch.
Absolutely. You came out there with a pretty dope grill.
Yeah.
You got some shine on the teeth. And, held out for the dodgeball tournament.
Held it out, man. All right, man. Let's get the fuck out of here. I think we've basically hit on all of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
Next week's show will probably be pretty important for everyone wanting to know what's going on with the Super Bowl. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of storylines leading up to that, things that we're going to hear this week. Of course, there's going to be no COVID news because the Super Bowl's happening. The NFL can't allow that to happen.
Yeah, COVID's over in the NFL.
Yep. So, really looking forward to next week. But everybody, tuning in this week. Cool FM coming out, doing a little piece on us. That's been awesome. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, watching, hearing what's going on in sports and around the NFL. Really appreciate everyone who's been viewing and commenting, being a part of this show. It's been great.
Yeah, guys, thank you very much. Cool FM, thank those guys as well. Check us out on social. We'll be back next week. We're everywhere on podcast platforms if you want to listen. This is the Lineman Lounge. I'm Mike. That's Evo, and we're going to get the fuck out of here.
Right.
See you.
Welcome to the Lineman Lounge, hosted by Mike and Evo, calling their shots and being outlandish.
Breaking news from the Lineman Lounge. My fantasy football team just took a huge fucking hit. And that also makes it even more likely that the Raiders are going to beat the Ravens on Monday night. Le'Veon Bell is about to be your starter. Latavius Murray is going to go there as well. Jesus, fuck my ass.
Get ready for the thickest podcast in the game. Coming to you from Hangar 6, where sleeves are optional. Strap in. The show's